Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Plain Speaking, the voice of the Democratic Party. I am your moderator, Frank Rosenhoover, and I'm very happy to have you as a viewer today. And I would like to quickly introduce our panel. To my immediate far left is John Donnelly, who is a Democratic candidate, but he also won the primary election on both the Democratic and Republican tickets. He's running for school board in Altoona. Welcome, John.
Thank you.
And to my far right, which I hate to say, is Robin Aurandt, who is a member of the state committee as well as the local committee. And to my immediate left is John Pentland, the Democratic candidate for mayor of the city of Altoona. Welcome, John.
Thank you.
And to my immediate right is our resident historian and researcher, treasurer, and man of many talents, George Thompson. Welcome again, George.
Good morning, Frank.
It's good to have you all here. The first half of the show, we're going to be talking about the very two important parts of government that probably most immediately impact the citizens of Blair County, and in this case, particularly Altoona, and that is education and the city government itself. So I am going to begin the questioning just because of we got to get this thing going. So I'm going to ask each of these gentlemen to tell us very succinctly why they are running for the mayor in this case.
Well, Frank, the thing that got me interested, because I've never been active too much in politics, was Act 47 and the impact that it was going to have on the unions in the city workers. And I just think that they need a fair break. They don't need everything coming down on top of their heads because other mistakes were made in the past. I'm the voice. I'm the voice.
Okay. John Donnelly, why are you running for school board?
Well, it's not for the money, that's for sure. People ask me all the time, why school board? I mean, it's a non-paid elected position, but it's one of the most important positions that you can have. And we're talking about the education of our children, the future of our children. And as a parent, as a citizen, as a business owner, that's one of the most important things to me. So, I want to put my experience as a business person to good use to benefit the youth of our community.
An educated workforce benefits everyone.
Correct.
Now, you also have a very significant interest in the young people, because why? Your kids are involved in the...
I have two daughters. One's a senior now, and one is a sophomore. Both active students in the school. They both play basketball. So I've been a part of a lot of the different activities as they've gone through the system. And, Altoona offers a great education. I tell you what, there's not a better place I could want to educate. I went to a very small school, Shannon Valley. I mean, I think I did well for a small school. But for what our school systems offer our children, it's amazing. And we need to keep doing it. We need to keep investing in our children. Every parent wants to do more for their kids than they had done for them, and that's what we need to focus on.
Okay. Folks,
well, John, on that theme, I don't think there has been a whole lot of discussion in the Altoona School District about the quality of education. Altoona is ranked honorably mentioned in the nation for the quality of students based on the demographics in Altoona, meaning that we tend to have many low-income people living in Altoona, and the expectation of achievement isn't that high in that situation. 50% of Altoona School District is economically disadvantaged.
Right.
And people don't talk about this. In the paper, in the last few months, we keep hearing arguments about how they're mismanaged, and it revolved around a few thousands of dollars of salary that supposedly had been discussed but never officially documented. What's your position there on, whether the focus is correct on what we're talking about?
Well, I think over the past year the focus has been misguided. I mean, there's no doubt, we had the situation with the raises that need to be looked into. Well, the school district spent a lot of money on investigating that, which I thought was not a wise choice, because the state would have done the same thing for them. They would have got the same answer. But the one thing that we're fortunate is, and the reason why we have such successful students, is we have a great teaching group of teachers that care. And whenever they were going through the school closing hearings, the one thing that always came out loud from any parent was how much they cherish the teachers that we have and how they care about our students. And you don't buy that. That's, we're fortunate to be able to say that. So,
well, you see, this is what is so distressing about society today. And I've said many, many times about the Republican governors when they met in California in 2010. Their number one priority was the total destruction of public sector unions. And obviously all of the teachers in Pennsylvania, probably 95% of them belong to unions. And the constant badgering we get because we belong to a union which is intended on making sure education is the best there is. So when you testify about the worth of our teachers, it is very edifying because they don't get the recognition they deserve on a daily basis.
Right. I mean, schools, their product, I work in the business field, so you want to put out the best product. Our students are our best product. You want to make sure you attract the best teachers to teach those students and invest in that. I mean, what's more important than giving our children the best chance they can? So, we've been fortunate, and I want to make sure, as an elected official to the board, that we continue on to do that.
Yeah, Governor Corbett's Department of Education puts out statistics on different school districts, and in the Altoona School District, there's a category called percentage of classes taught by highly qualified teachers. Altoona is 100%, both the senior and the junior high, and not every school district has such high number percentage of highly qualified teachers. People need to know this. Our local citizens need to know this information, and somehow the school district or the news media, whatever, doesn't really talk about these issues, these facts.
Right, and people don't understand the time these teachers put in after hours. I mean, our teachers just don't check in at 8 o'clock every morning and leave at 3:30 and that's it. I mean, they're putting time in after hours, in clubs, talking to parents after school hours, putting their own time because they care about the students. And we need to make sure we give them the best resources we can to continue to educate our children.
What do you consider the biggest hindrance to getting our children to have the best education they can?
The thing that concerns me right now most, especially in the elementary schools, are the classroom sizes. I looked at some of the recent statistics, and we have over 54 classrooms out of about 175 that have more than 25 students in them. And national averages, they'll tell you that you should be in the 20 range. We only have one school, which is Juniata, which is in that average 20 students per class. So I think we need to do everything we can to find funding, to bring in more teachers, to reduce that classroom size, to give these students the one-on-one attention that they need. It's hard to do that with 25, 26, 30 kids in a classroom.
Okay, we're going to shift for a minute because certainly the city of Altoona is just as important when it comes to the service to the community. And John, I know you've been very diligent in going to meetings at city council and being an active candidate. What, in your estimation, is the biggest issue facing the city of Altoona right now? I know there's a ton of them, but if you had a priority, because people are going to ask you, what's the biggest issue that you're looking at?
If you'd have asked me this a month or two ago, I'd have said people are going to tell me the roads. They don't like the potholes, or mundane things like this. They don't want to pay a head tax. But you gave me a piece of advice last month. When I'm canvassing, why not ask the people, what do you think is the biggest problem in Altoona? And I tell you what, I was surprised. I got one answer. When I got an answer, one, drugs, crime. That's the two things that Altoona citizens are most concerned about. And this is not the mundane thing that we can just go throw some concrete over. This is a big problem. Now, I started working on this actually back in 2005. I noticed that there was a lot more heroin deaths going on. You watch the newspaper obituaries, you'd see one young person per week dying of this stuff. And we started a program then to start educating kids. We did fundraisers. You might remember this, One Life, No Do-Overs. We put up billboards, we ran commercials. The thing was, what happened during that time, it was all economics. The state looked at how much it cost to house an inmate, which at the time was around $32,000 per year to house an inmate. Now, they could send the same inmate, as long as he's convicted of a drug crime, into an inmate program where it costs them under $20,000 a year for the same inmate. Now, the economics of it is they want to send them there. So the state went out looking for places to send these people. Well, there was some enterprising men that found Altoona. Now, at that time, these drug rehab houses, there was 5 going on in Altoona. State College is similar in size. They had 1. Now, that's what happened. The kids weren't ready. They were sending people that were convicted drug dealers into our area. They found a lucrative area, and it got out of hand. All right, the police have really done a wonderful job at crackdowns during that time period. If you remember, there were all these huge roundups, and the due diligence of the chief and her officers have really made a difference. And I speak to her quite a bit about this, and she assures me that you call that push out a pusher, they will investigate it. They will check that, and this is how they've managed to clean up a lot of part of Altoona. And I think we're getting started on this again, and I think we should just push it. If you see a problem, call push out the pusher.
Yeah.
We can take care of this.
Now, the issue that, of course, crime is very important, of course, but obviously the prevention of crime is also very important, too, because if we don't make any efforts to prevent, or at least encourage people not to be criminals, it's not going to help us at all. And I noticed that as I read the papers over the last couple years, in fact, that the size of the police department itself has been diminishing. The size of the fire department has been diminishing. And it's the reason this is being diminished, or they are being diminished, is the lack of funding.
Yeah.
So as a candidate for mayor, do you feel that the level of police and firemen we have today is adequate? And if not, what would you recommend in the way of perhaps raising more funds in order to bring our police and fire complements up to what the standard should be?
Well, there definitely are not enough officers out doing the job. There are days where they're down to 2 officers on patrol.
Oh, wow.
On a city this size. And
Yeah, that's not acceptable.
And the chief is doing a great job of trying to work with what she's given. A fantastic job. But to hire more officers, now we're under Act 47. And there's limitations. The city has limitations that they can't go outside of Act 47. If we go into home rule, this opens up a lot more areas for us where we can work. Earned income tax on people coming in working here from out in the townships, that's one way. The government study group, there's a plethora of information coming out of that group. These people are just some of the finest minds. I think the electorate got it right when they picked that 7. They're asking the right questions of the right people. But their job is to get us out of 47, show us a path. Once we're out of 47, then it's up to us to fix these things. But that's the thing, and to get out of 47, that's going to take population growth, which we got into Act 47 because population declined, but there's only 2 cities, third-class cities in Pennsylvania that are not declining. So we're in good company. There's a lot. And
right. And the state has in the Pennsylvania Cable Network a series of programs about distressed cities in Pennsylvania, and some of the things that are happening to Altoona and really the school district reflect the declining population, and it's a situation that really is beyond our control for many ways, because it's the economic conditions in the country that are causing many of the factors.
Well, George, I'm not trying to say we need to raise our population from bringing people in from California or Philadelphia and move over here. Urban, it's a cycle. People will move into a neighborhood, they will age, and as such, a lot of the properties will decline because they're on fixed incomes. So you'll see a neighborhood start to decline. Well, people won't move into that neighborhood then.
Yeah.
And then the prices go down. And when it gets so low, then entrepreneurs say, hey, here's a chance. We'll go in here and renovate this area and make some money. And they'll renovate it and make a very nice, well, the townhouses. There's something. Those things went immediately. People, the young professionals, they wanted a nice townhouse in the city. Neighborhood by neighborhood. You fix a neighborhood. I'm not looking for out-of-towners. I'm looking for people from the suburbs out in the township to come back into the city, where you can go out your door and move into a butcher shop next door, or walk down the block if you want to hit a pub, not have to get in your car and commute. And I think that's another thing, and we talked about a 7-block area that's zoned commercial, that people could just go there to shop. I see the malls as a dying breed. I'm really, would you prefer yourself, would you not prefer to go along a city street, window shop, and look at the Christmas decorations outside, or do you want to go into a mall? I mean, you could put a nice fountain in there, but the ambiance is still in the city, and we have to exploit that and develop that, and people will come back to the neighborhoods. And once they start leaving the townships and come back into Altoona, we are no longer declining population, and there we go, we're out of Act 47 and living the good life again.
Well, we have some local examples of what you're talking about. I mean, State College downtown, of course, has been viable. In many ways, though, the students make that possible. Cumberland, Maryland, I'm struck by how they've taken really an old section of the city, very similar to Altoona's section. The difference is they have a lot of stores, a lot of foot traffic, customers. I don't know. Altoona's been trying this for years. I'm not sure what the missing ingredient is here at Altoona exactly, but it's certainly something that can be done.
Well, I testified before that act with the Government Commission. I was corrected. It's not the Act 47 Commission. It is the Home Rule Government Commission. And I testified before that group about a month ago. And one of the comments that was made by, I think, Mary Hippo, was that years ago they brought in from Philadelphia, as an example, a redevelopment group of people whose whole idea is to revitalize neighborhoods. And they spent a considerable amount of time here in Altoona viewing various neighborhoods that the mayor and others, the city planning people and everything, decided these were blighted areas. At the end of the tour, the redevelopment folks from Philadelphia says, well, now show us the real problem. Their point being that there are so many neighborhoods that have good homes in it, but maybe one or two dilapidated, and they're not interested in single home redevelopment. They want to do it block by block. So these redevelopers are not coming to Altoona because there are not enough blocks of total deterioration that they're interested in. So the problem is exacerbated now by how do you get somebody to come in and just do house by house.
You see, Frank, I look at that different. I look at that as we don't have as far to go to fix the neighborhoods.
Well,
you bring a guy in hunting with a shotgun, he wants a big area. I want somebody specifically, the sniper, going to take house by house.
But what I'm telling you is that how do you get those people? Because the city tried to bring developers in to do it, but they were saying, we're not coming in here because we can't afford to do house by house.
Well, you have to have the people that want to come in and live in those houses.
That's right.
And I think, real quick, let's go on with the school system. The same thing with the city. You got to sell the city and what it offers.
That's right.
You have to have a top-notch education system. You have to be safe. You promote that, you'll bring people in.
Okay, I got the signal we're on our first break, and when we come back, we'll pursue the reasons why John and John want to serve in their different capacities for the citizens of particularly Altoona.
My Jamie, she was my baby girl, my precious baby girl. When Jamie was a teenager, she would spend her lunch hours going to the tanning salons. I didn't realize how dangerous they were. If you tan when you're young, your risk for melanoma are increased by 75%. That's huge. What I would say to mothers that allow their daughters to tan, no mother should have to visit their daughter in a cemetery. One person an hour dies from melanoma. Jamie's hour was at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Friday, March 16th, 2007. I hope no one else has to mark their hour.
This message is brought to you by the American Academy of Dermatology.
Savings Man here with a story for you about two young spenders named Tommy and Sue. Their parents let them buy whatever they chose, like video games and designer clothes. As they grew older, they spent all their pay on fancy cars, houses, 2 lattes a day. They lived in the moment, never saving a dime. When they tried to retire, they'd run out of time. Working forever is Tom and Sue's fate, so choose to save now before it's too late. Visit our website to find out more, because a happy ending's worth saving for.
Right here.
Okay, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We have John Pentland running for mayor on the Democratic ticket, and John Donnelly, who is on both the Democratic and Republican ballots for school director. And we are in the process of finding out exactly where these guys are coming from and what they're going to do for you, particularly those of you who live in the Altoona area, because we unfortunately don't have any candidates running for some of the other offices, and we just can't bring them to you. So we were talking a little bit before, during the break, about the funding of government. And I would like to know what you gentlemen think about the current funding system, which, as we all know, relies very heavily on the property tax. And there are some other taxes, the head tax, the earned income tax, and so on. But the amount of money they bring in is significantly lower than the property tax. Would you have any ideas about any kind of a tax system that could be developed that would be, say, more reasonable, John?
Well,
Donnelly?
I think when it comes to schools, and people need to first sit down and start talking. I mean, the system we have right now is not working. I mean, schools are struggling to meet their budgets, and the tax system is part of that. They're funded by taxes, so no matter what, you have to have taxes to pay for these services. I think we need to sit down with our legislators and put the egos aside. Let's start talking about what can we do to make the system better, fair, and equitable. At the end of the day, we don't want to be taking services away just because we don't agree on how to tax. We need to sit down and start having those discussions, because if we don't do anything about it, the problem's going to get worse.
John?
Well, the whole key to this is the county commissioners. This has not been reassessed since the 50s, and that doesn't mean your taxes will go up. To reassess means it just puts it at the right place, the right people paying the taxes, but that's nothing that city government can do for you. That's your county government, and as far as where our tax load is right now, Blair County is the lowest taxed rate in Pennsylvania, and within the municipalities in Blair County, the only two that have a lower tax rate than Altoona is Logan Township and Tyrone Township. Now, if you look at like Williamsburg, they have a very low real estate tax, but a huge school tax. So Altoona actually is pretty even. The real estate is pretty even with what the school taxes are. So there's nothing that we can really do to address this problem. This goes back to county commissioners and their unwillingness to address the problems.
Okay,
it also comes back to our state legislators who had decide what percentage of the funding is real estate, what percentage is earned income tax. And, there's been discussions now for a number of years over the right balance of real estate, earned income tax. I'm not sure, either of you could really solve that issue, but just to put it on the table, it's certainly a problem. Now, in the case of maybe we could locally solve the issue, or at least help the issue, is so many tax-exempt properties Have you been able to get a list of those properties that are tax exempt? Because it's not always apparent. I mean, churches,
Well,
everybody
yeah.
knows, hospitals, schools, but there's also public housing that I believe is tax exempt. There's a lot of things that you don't necessarily think of when you look at the buildings as tax exempt.
There's one. The PUC, Pentland, all the land they own, they don't have to pay taxes on that.
Have you tried to get a list of...
Well, the thing is, I know we'd all like to address this. We really would. The thing is, you have to take this case by case by case, and there comes the lawyers. And there, it's going to cost you more to correct this problem on a local level than you would get back from it. This has to be addressed at the Harrisburg level. Why does the PUC tax exempt all this land? I mean, why? And why would HUD get a tax break when it's like I knew somebody years ago that stayed down here at Cherry Grove, and this is a lot of years ago. The rent paid by the state for one of those apartments to that owner was $900 for an apartment, a little two-bedroom apartment, $900. Why is it tax exempt? These people are making a ton of money. Yeah. I don't understand this, but this again is above my pay grade. This is Harrisburg. This is the people that have to answer to this.
Yeah. Well, how do you get that kind of attention? You have a guy by the name of McGinnis, who is the 79th district representative in Harrisburg. He, under no circumstances, will raise taxes. You have a 30th senatorial district senator by the name of Eichelberger. He is unalterably opposed to any kind of revenue-enhancing legislation. So how do we get this? You say talk to the legislators. You might as well talk to yourself as talk to those two guys.
We need a conversation that doesn't focus on raising taxes so much as making the tax system more equitable. You know, everyone needs to pay their fair share and not just burden, everyone needs to pay their fair share.
And that's a good point, but how can we get people together? Because, if you pay attention now, there is one sector of the political spectrum that we all know is very, very prominent right now just because the media has made them prominent. That's this Tea Party business, or tea baggers, depending on how they go about doing their business. And there is no question that if you pay attention to what their platform is, they are out to destroy government. Now, they'll deny that. Yeah. But every single thing they propose, like the shutdown of the national government, was orchestrated by this small group of people.
Which was a $24 billion
loss to the taxpayers of this country. Now, as political nominees for your party, and as you look at this, is there any influence that you can detect locally on either the school board, and you don't have to name names or anything else, but has this Tea Party philosophy enroached itself into Altoona city government and school district government, to the best of your knowledge?
I think when you look at the school district, I think it's, the trend is there. Take away, spend as less as you can at the detriment to our children, which is the worst thing you can do. Again, I said, it's a time people will start checking their egos at the door, sit down at a table and have an educated conversation. Listen, the system is broke. What can we do to fix it? And
realize the consequences of their ideas. If they would implement all their ideas, where is that going to lead us?
Right. It's easy to talk about the hot buttons and get people riled up and the rah. But at the end of the day, we have to invest in our communities, in our children, and so forth, so that we can survive. If we take that away, then we're going to fall by the wayside.
Well, John McGinnis, when he ran this last time, much of his funding for his campaign came from national organizations out of our area.
School
organizations.
First is one.
Correct. School First, Students First.
Students First, I'm sorry.
And a lot of their philosophy really is to privatize the school system. I mean, And we see it now on TV ads with the charter schools, the cyber schools, and actually Altoona's joined the bandwagon. They have their own cyber school that they have set up in conjunction with other school districts. Have you gotten involved in that aspect? It's come up a little bit in this salary discussion. Part of the reasons for some of the salaries were Altoona School District's responsibility for the Central Pennsylvania Cyber School.
And I think the reason the school district got within the cyber school, they needed to. I mean, you got to protect their own students within this area. My fear is whenever you privatize stuff when it comes to education, that then it's down to about profits. And what's really your decision making? What can I do most profits? And by doing so, sometimes you'll make decisions that's going to harm those students, and we can't afford to do that. I mean, we have to take care of our own.
Yeah, and some of the research on the effectiveness of the cyber school is certainly not encouraging. Students are not progressing as well as students that remain in a regular public school setting.
If somebody's taught in cyber school their whole life, how do you expect them to go out and interact in the public eye after that? I mean, they're so sheltered. Not every type of education is right for every student too. You got to do what's best for the children. But again, we got to do what's the smartest thing. And what's that mix? I don't know. I'm not an expert when it comes to that. But again, it all comes down to when it comes to education, you can't go in with the mindset, this is what we're going to do, period. You got to be able to be open-minded, work, get along, and cooperate. Again, do what's best for the children.
Any other questions?
Well, this impacts Altoona directly. We've closed several schools this past year, and part of it is the declining population of the area, but also part of it is students actually leaving, but funded by Altoona. That's the irony of the thing. Altoona still funds the education of the cyber school students, and there's an effort also to fund other schools. Locally, we would call them the parochial schools, but it doesn't need to be parochial schools. These are private schools set up, in some cases, by the school districts themselves. What I'm saying is there's a trend away from education the way it's been done for years, and I'm not sure the results are very encouraging that this should continue.
I think the negativity has overtaken reason, because it's easy to condemn a system that is mandated by the Constitution, which is controlled by a Board of Education, which is not elected, they're appointed, and therefore the rules and regulations that are promulgated by this Board of Education in Harrisburg, that every local district must adhere to, are not developed by professional educators. And therefore, the rules and regulations that the school districts have to follow are mandated in Harrisburg, with the exception, none of these private schools have to be under the school code. They don't have to have the same rules and regulations as far as attendance, curriculum. I mean, they get away with more. They don't have to take the state-mandated testing. And therefore, how can you compare the public schools results to a group of people who don't even have to be tested, and you're saying they're better than? So that whole problem exists in the public schools. Now, I know the city doesn't have the same kind of an issue, but I think the issue that the city has, and Act 47 was inaugurated because the city was unable to raise the funds to do it. So we get back to this whole idea. You're constrained by Act 47, the third-class city code. The school boards are restricted by the type of taxes you can raise. And so, the issues are almost monumental.
Well, the city even, let's talk about police, declining police officers. So you have a consensus by certain people in the community that drugs are a problem. So our town is set up. And I view it as a way sort of substituting for what cities should be doing. They're soliciting private money, and many business leaders stepped forward, gave money for our town, and many of the aspects of our town is a substitute for what the police department does. And then you have the Altoona Regional, UPMC Altoona, Penn State Altoona, actually the school district, they all have police officers. I mean, it really is interesting how things are developing. In some ways, you don't tax the city, or the city can't collect money, so other entities pop up to provide what I think is needed services.
Well, that's a thing that we should be going for, is a metro police force. If you could combine the APD and the Logan Township, it all depends what we can bring. What can we bring to the table that it will influence Logan Township to integrate these two? And it would solve a lot of problems for everyone. And as far as the Act 47 and the police, 2 years ago there was a study done. If we didn't go into Chapter 47, we would be down to 40 officers and 40 firefighters without Act 47. So there was a very good reason that we got here. But now we got to navigate our way out.
Right.
And that's what we have to do.
Well, we're approaching the end of our second session, and I would like to thank both John Donnelly and John Pentland for coming forward today. And I think those of you who have been watching the interview certainly can understand that we have two outstanding candidates, and I'm going to let them have 1 minute each to tell you why you should vote for them, particularly you folks in Altoona, because we don't have enough candidates to represent the county. John.
No, we've discussed a lot of the main challenges that are facing the education system, and you need qualified people who understand what the effects of those decisions are going to be. With my background as an accountant, I've worked with multi-international companies in finance. I understand what it means to balance budgets and do what best with the money you have. And I care because I have children in the system. So at the end of the day, I'm there to help make our education continue to get better each and every day at prices that we can afford, but let's not shortchange our students.
Okay, good. John, why should you be mayor of Altoona?
Well, because the job description of what the mayor should be doing. The mayor has to sell this city. You have to go out and bring investment in, get people here, be the voice and the face of this area. And for that, I am the best candidate for this. I've got extensive history in sales as well as in law enforcement, and I think I know I can be an asset to Altoona.
Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen, and we'll take our next break, and when you come back we'll be slightly reconfigured, but we will continue the plain speaking program. Thank you.
Perfect. Or if you're not the world's greatest camera person, we just want to see what you want us to see and to know what you would like us to know. Your local public access television station has tools and resources to make this possible so that we can see what you see. It's the freedom to communicate, and it's only on cable.
Behind the wheel, there is no such thing as a small distraction. A public service reminder from the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons, who would rather help keep your bones strong than put them back together. Speak out against distracted driving at decidetodrive.org.
Okay, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. In the remainder of our program, we're going to be touching on a couple of issues that obviously have a great impact on what you are doing and what your lives particularly. But I think before we hit a specific item, I do want to, again, stress, we've got to get the vote out. If we as Democrats, who have historically been derelict, really, truly, in the percentage of our folks who vote, if we want to begin to affect the way government is being run and elect the kind of candidates we need you to vote. Please don't sit back and think, well, my vote doesn't count. It's not going to mean anything anyway. We're not a predominantly Republican county. But the thing...
Or the worst argument is, politics doesn't affect me.
Yeah, that's another point. Politics doesn't affect... The heck it doesn't. Look what's happening in this country.
Yeah.
So if anything else that we can say or do, we want to impress upon you that you've got to vote. There are people all over the world dying in the streets to have that right. And we should not be so casual as to say, well, for whatever reason, we're not going to vote. And every Democratic vote you make is not, we may not win Blair County, but we're going to win Pennsylvania, we're going to win the nation. And that's what counts. So please, make a commitment to vote. If you need a ride, call the Democratic office. The number's up behind me here. We'll have people in the office on Election Day, which, by the way, is the first Tuesday of November this year, because it's usually the first Tuesday after the first Monday, but the first Monday falls in the first week. So please get out and vote. Now we're going to talk a little bit about some national issues, and we're going to take a quick look at this debacle called the governmental shutdown. George, what do you think was the genesis of this whole shutdown, and what impact do you think it's going to have on the 2014 elections?
Well, it seems to have been a response really to Obamacare. At least that's how the Republicans initially presented it. They wanted to defund the Affordable Care Act. We can talk about that if you want, but then it sort of, when that then hit a chord with the American public, then they sort of shifted the arguments for why the shutdown should occur, mainly due to we're hitting the budget deficit limit, our borrowing limit. Well, just to remind everyone out there, the people that are protesting that we're borrowing too much money are the same people that also decide how much revenue we get. In other words, the taxes that are being levied. They also decide what expenditures are being made. So this is terrible, really, what the argument was. It's like me saying, well, okay, I agreed to this a year ago that we would spend so much money, but guess what? We're hitting what I view as our new budget limit, and I'm refusing to pay our bills. America, if it had actually occurred what the Republicans were suggesting, we wouldn't have paid our bills. To me, it's a ridiculous position, and shame on us, because America is a very wealthy country.
That's right.
There's no Greek economic crisis in America. So to me, it's very disingenuous, and I hope that it's not going to continue now. What the can was kicked down the road for 4 months on the budget deficit.
Well, you know, the people, the other side complains about the debt. Well, back in 2007, the debt represented about 10% of the GNP. Now it's down to 3.4%. The percentage of the debt in the totality of the expenses of this country has gone down from 2007, from representing 10% of the liabilities, now down to 3.4%, and they project for next year it's even going to go down lower. So the amount of debt is decreasing, even though the number's a little higher, because what people don't realize is the debt is higher today because than it was 10 years ago, because we have millions more people. And services are expanding, and the dollars that are spent are necessary, and therefore you can't talk about $17 trillion of a debt in relation to what the population was 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Well, right, and the economic conditions in 2007, 2008, 2009 were such that people earned less money, less taxes were being collected because of that, and government provides service, the safety net. For all those laid off people, government expenditures went up. And so to me, to focus in on the period of 2007, 8, 9, and act like, let's say, Barack Obama was responsible for it is a total misreading of what really went on there. the economy, and maybe you should look back a little further. What caused the economy to blow up? And of course, many people are blaming it on the banks and their wildly optimistic lending for mortgages, for really Visa debts and everything.
J.P. Morgan is being fined $13 billion for mismanaging mortgages.
Yeah, lying to people, because saying that these packaged up mortgages were high quality when they knew very well that they were not high quality. The income of the people that were getting the mortgages could not normally support that
and how many of those people are being criminally charged?
Well, a few,
None.
but you know, I think we've had a few people, and it's not for that issue.
No,
it's really for total criminal behavior, like insider trading.
Yeah, but I mean, it doesn't seem reasonable that people of substance, of means, are not being criminally charged when there is no doubt in anyone's mind that they've agreed that they did these things improperly.
They're too big to fail, and they're too big to jail.
Well, that's probably true. Okay, do you think that the problems that are now surrounding the Affordable Care Act, this horrible problem with inability to get access to the website and everything, do you think it can be, and we don't know that much about what causes are, but do you think that if it is not rectified within, say, 2 or 3 or 4 months, that it'll have an impact on the elections coming up in 2014? Because if you listen to the pundits now, because the Republicans are overwhelmingly being charged with causing the shutdown, but will the attacks on the ACA have an impact on that come 2014?
Well,
I guess we'll just have to.
Well, yeah, if they would continue for 3 months, you're starting to bump up against when people need to avoid penalties.
That's right. And Manson come out with.
So, but I don't get a feel in reading things that would ever happen. For one thing, substitute measures like simply calling someone to enroll are coming up, submitting pieces of paper. Let me say, in Pennsylvania, we have really been sort of ignorant of what's going on, mainly because Governor Corbett still has not settled with the federal government some major aspects of what Obamacare was, and I'm talking specifically about the
Medicaid,
part of. When people go to sign into the website, under most of the states, all this has been settled. They're going to be getting Medicaid. But here in Pennsylvania, it's still not settled what you're going to get. So I don't know. I haven't heard or read anything specific about Pennsylvania, how they're resolving this, but it has to be a problem.
Yeah, because and what they're doing is they're not getting $1 billion from the government to fund this expansion of Medicaid, and then after the first year they're going to get 90% reimbursed.
No, 100% is 3 years.
3 years, and then, I mean,
and then after that,
who in their right mind turns down
free money?
Yeah, I mean, and then it's all politics. It's all to get.
Yeah.
Well, and Governor Corbett acted like by not accepting the Medicaid expansion that he was keeping CHIPS alive, and I wasn't sure really there never was enough information that I read about what he was really saying, as apparently he's taken the position that by not entering the Medicaid program, he was keeping people already enrolled in our CHIPS program, which is superior to the Medicaid funding. I guess that's what his argument was. And so he made news releases about how he saved Pennsylvania CHIPS by not.
But the point is, in their budget, they've cut funding for CHIPS.
Well, yeah. I mean, it didn't make much sense. And likewise, locally, we have Dr. Gates, who has been proposing certain clinics, and this has been adapted a little bit by state legislation. And I'm not sure either how they fit in. This whole thing is not being explained. At least I pay attention to this stuff, and I can't really understand how Dr. Gates's clinics are fitting into the Obamacare thing. I assume they are, because like you say, why would Pennsylvania refuse to take 100% federal funding?
Yes, I don't understand it, and I think what people have to do is ask guys like McGinnis and Eichelberger and Stern, why are you supporting the governor in turning down this money when it's going to increase the cost to the average Pennsylvania citizen?
Yeah, Governor Kasich in Ohio,
he
actually had a legislature that was also refusing to appropriate the money to implement Obamacare, and he overruled it.
That's exactly right, and that's another Republican governor. Well, it's just a shame that we have people who are so ideologically oriented that regardless of the benefit to the Pennsylvania citizens, they're going to stick to this thing, that we're not going to take it because we don't like that guy or we don't like the program. If it's 100% refundable, I mean, what kind of an idiot would turn down?
And their constant barrage of trying to get Obamacare repealed within Congress. How many times was it?
Well, 41 times repeal and replace. They have that memorized now. And what I want to know is, what is the replacement?
They have not
I haven't heard any Republicans give a comprehensive plan, and if they're saying replace means just leave everything the same, let me remind everyone that we already in the United States have health care that's double the cost of the rest of the world. So we got to understand that we are providing health care, but it's at a very expensive level.
Right, and it's not to everybody. We're the only industrial nation in the world that doesn't have care for every single citizen. Somebody said to Boehner yesterday on TV, they said, Mr. Speaker, I understand Mr. Ryan is going to present an alternative to the ACA bill. What can you tell us about that? He said, talk to Mr. Ryan. Now, what kind of response is that? Here he is, the Speaker of the House, the Republican, and here's the budget chairman for the Republicans, supposedly has this plan. Don't you think that the Speaker would have known? Why would he let a committee chair make an announcement that he's going to do something that the Speaker isn't aware of? We don't know the answers, but we should get them sometime.
It makes you wonder about the underpinnings of.
Well, we know. Unfortunately, we know why they're doing it. They're out there to get, as Mitch McConnell said, and they lost on that one, prevent this guy from winning a second term. Now that he has a second term, they are heck bent on leather that they're going to make sure he isn't successful.
Well, and it's a good campaign promotion with the fundraising to be against Obamacare, but as Obamacare is being implemented, and admittedly a rough road for people signing up, but just to remind everyone, in some states that didn't allow the federal government to do everything, and this was always an option for Pennsylvania, New York, California, Washington, all those states decided we're doing this ourselves. We're setting up the health exchange. And for the most part, those exchanges are actually working, getting lower rates.
Absolutely.
This obstinance that Governor Corbett had to approving Pennsylvania's health care is really remarkable. And
it's destructive.
It's very destructive. But now that it is being implemented, people are actually getting a good view of they're viewing Obamacare as something that's desirable.
Yeah, well, there was a statistic this morning on CNN. I was watching it, and it says that since this whole shutdown even, Obamacare's level of acceptance has gone up. And even in the statistics where they said 56% of the people a couple of months ago said they don't think Obamacare is right, 16% of those people said that because they didn't think it went far enough.
Well, I mean, this part of the reason the marketplace is failing is because of all this complication that was put in really by the Republicans trying to make it rough to provide health care. If they had simply stated everyone's covered by a Medicare-like system, all of these checks on income, this interrelationship between the IRS and the medical system, which was necessary because of the way the legislation was written. I mean, that would have disappeared. So we've made it very complicated in the United States to give our citizens health care.
It's creating bureaucracy, which is what the Republicans run against all the time. They want to get the level of bureaucracy down, and yet they're throwing all these stumbling blocks to make more bureaucracy.
The whole thing is that the other side has a better message because I'm convinced they have a Department of Lies and Half-Truths.
Yeah.
We have not reduced ourselves to deliberately misinforming the public. And I think the Republican side is actually saying things that are basically untrue.
Oh, sure they are.
And yet we have not strongly come out and said, you're lying.
Well, we don't have the money to give the message.
That's another thing.
The PACs, the conservative PACs, have been consistently saying untruthful, negative things about Obamacare, and they've outspent by far any of the PACs that are spending healthcare positively.
Right.
I mean, to the tune of $400 million in conservative anti-Obamacare ads. And so people that don't pay attention, looking at the TV, oh, this terrible Obamacare. Yeah. And if you would ask them any of the details,
they don't know.
They either agree with some of the things that have been implemented, or they don't know what the details are. So it's
we got to do a better job. Let's take a quick minute. We're down to about 4 minutes, 3 minutes now. They tell us. Take a look at in Pennsylvania what's happening. You talk about Corbett, how ineffective he is. He can't even get a transportation bill passed. He was in the paper this morning.
Yeah, and he has a Republican legislature, so
I know,
why
both parties, all three, executive, Senate, and House.
Yeah.
Well, they're going to postpone it till the 12th of November.
Yeah. Because
of arguments. And the small games a chance bill that was supposed to give local businesses, bars, and so on, the opportunity to engage in them. Corbett had originally supported it. Now he's withdrawn support on it. I mean, the guy can't even get.
Well, talking about bars, privatization of the liquor stores, which they never talked about it, but also meant elimination of local beer distributors.
Yeah. That's right.
That's also stalled.
Yeah.
So some of these initiatives that he set up as a priority aren't going through because there's reasons why they were
the three big ones were the pension reform, the transportation bill, and the privatization. None of the three have been settled, and here we are into almost November now.
I hope this really gives people a glimpse into how dysfunctional the Republican Party is.
Well, and like I say, we don't like to carp and complain about the other side, but if you pay attention to what their positions are, it is not to make Pennsylvania better. It's to detract from what we've been doing well.
But if we keep enough pressure on them, then maybe they'll have to start negotiating and be more bipartisan, because it seems like the Democrats are bipartisan, whereas Republicans are shut the door in your face and it's my way.
Well, within the Republican Party, at least nationally, there is this division now developing within the Republican Party of what I call common sense Republicans and Tea Party Republicans.
Okay, we're out of time, and we do want to again tell our viewing audience, please get out and vote on November the 4th, the first Tuesday in the month. I think it's, do we have our calendars now?
No.
Okay.
I think it's the 5th.
Okay, the 5th of November. So remember, vote Democratic. If there are no candidates, vote for the ones that are there. Thank you. We're going to meet again on the